Hi everyone, Steve Westman. I'm here at the Hi-Fi Center, 433 Carroll, downtown Vancouver. All the hi-fi equipment you need, come check out our website, hificenter.com. Now, if you haven't, obviously hit that subscription button. It helps me out a ton. Today, we're doing a roundtable discussion, our audiophile roundtable discussion for the week. Original versus audiophile repress. Are they worth it? Are the audiophile worth it, or are the originals a better, spend of your money? Let's find out on the other side of the Audiophiles. Hi everyone, Steve Westman from the Audiophile Roundtable. We've got Tim from the University of Vinyl. Tolbert, how you doing, Tim? From
very good.
Colorado.
Thanks.
And of course, we don't need an introduction, but I'll give the audience one anyways. Norman, Mazzy, Maslov, how are you today, sir?
God, I'm in Seattle. It sounds like a mafia name, like Norman Mazzy, the Maslov or something.
Do you know where Hoffa was buried, maybe?
No. Yeah,
No.
He was, yeah, never mind.
Maybe he's alive. I don't know. So today, obviously we want to go over the latest audiophile news for the week. Our viewers seem to enjoy that a lot from all the comments. And guys, if you're listening, please comment. We all like to read those comments and I enjoy them a lot. So keep those going. And I do reply to not all of them, but some of them sometimes, but I do appreciate the comments. So keep that up. And then today, want to start off audiophile news? Tim, I'll start with you. Anything you want to sort of talk about for the week that has come across your email or you've seen online or whatnot?
Actually, yeah. I don't want to rehash the Rhino hi-fi series, and I got my car's self-titled. It sounds amazing, but there was a nasty corner ding on it. I'm not about to return it, but I posted something on my Instagram account. Literally, it's probably the most feedback I've ever received as far as private messages and just comments. A lot of people have similar issues or seam splits. They're not happy about it, and they have reached out, and apparently this is what I'm hearing. I haven't done this in practice, so I'm not going to bother, but there's like an auto reply, and if it's about damage, we'll be back to you soon. They're like supposedly inundated with messages. So
okay, yeah,
you mentioned that last week about this. You talked to them; they're going to change the packaging, but aside from using those cheap ass packagings for a premium product, the thing was even more. And I learned from a bad experience about 2 years ago. I bought an album, a new record, and I sliced it open with my knife, and I sliced right into the cover because there was no cardboard. This was the same way, but I've learned to be very careful. So if I had just opened up like I do most of the time, I would have sliced right into that cover.
Yeah. I don't know. I was being careful. I don't know why, but it seemed flimsy when I opened it, and there was nothing there. No foam, no bubble wrap, not even a piece of brown paper.
It's puzzling. It is puzzling.
Yeah. I can say, talking to Patrick Milligan, he's aware of the situation. They've read the comments on our last roundtable with regards to with viewers complaining about that. I did receive my copies on Wednesday. It was basically, I bought the Coltrane sounds in the cars, and it was just in one Uline box and with no bubble wrap or anything. I took it out of the package and it was completely fine in mint. So yeah, I had no issues.
Mine had a slight ding on it. I only got the cards, and I thought it sounded great though. I thought, in terms of the product, it's done very well.
And this is the thing, getting into sort of what we wanted to talk about today is sort of original versus the audiophile reissues and sort of where we're at in that market and where we see it going. Because I think this is a big topic for a lot of different forums on Facebook or the Steve Hoffman forum. You read a lot about that. And where is this going to go with the reissue market? We know there's a big slowdown, and we talked about it last week in the premium market. Norman, what do you think going forward? Do you think there's going to be less demand for the premium, or there's going to have to be
I posted a comment on one of the forums about this type of thing. I have no vision of what's happening. I've been out of the record business for decades, so it's a whole different world. I think, as I said, I think we talked about this last time, that high-end market, the box sets, the MOFI, as well as the analog productions, UHQR, I think people are softening. Those were never meant to be for the larger audience. When they did 1,500, 2,500, even maybe 5,000, depending on the title. That was plenty. Of course, if you do a Zeppelin, that's a whole different thing. But now, and also they weren't doing the entire catalog, doing like supposedly all the Eagles or all the Van Halen. You don't, all the Steely Dan. You don't need to do every Steely Dan in that level, because I worked for ABC when Steely Dan were, those first 3 records came out, and then MCA, and they were big until the third one, Damn the Torpedoes. Tom Petty wasn't a huge seller, and but Tom Petty sold more than Steely Dan in that once that third thing hit. So even though Asia was big, Damn the Torpedoes was a lot bigger by far than Steely Dan. So, I don't think that, for what, 15, 20, 25, 30,000 copies for a $150 record.
It's going to be a tough one going forward. And I think MOFI sort of started that pre-DSD gate when they announced they're going to release the entire Eagles catalog in one step. And
Joni Mitchell.
Well, Joni Mitchell, we talked about last week.
Oh.
I'm not buying that either. I think that all of us can agree that's not happening. I will say there was Bill Withers is coming out. It was Still Bill was announced. I think it was yesterday. MOFI's, you can buy that now on their website if you're interested. It's obviously cut from a DST file, but those records sound really well. The
original sounds great.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that original. Like Tim, you obviously have a pretty decent collection of originals, and of course Mazzy does. Do you, like, when you have a really good sounding original, are you really willing to just run out and buy the new reissue, or are you just going to just more content with your original and just watch guys like myself do reviews and come up with conclusions on which one sounds better?
So I've worked really hard since I've gotten back into this rabbit hole to find clean originals for all of my favorite artists, or standout recordings that I think I should have in my collection. If there are interesting titles that I particularly love the music, I'll go out and get the reissue. The double 45 of Rumors is a good example, and it sounds amazing. There are certain artists who do a great job, and I understand, not your typical person on the street is not invested in spending the time and effort to find clean 50-year-old records. So it's important that these are in print and available, and even better if they're audiophile quality. So I'll just run through a few of these. I know Mazzy has a similar idea, but XTC, the Ape reissues for I think they're doing their entire catalog. If you didn't have an original and you had this, you can stop right there. These sound amazing. They're very well done. They're either 180 or 200 gram. If that makes a difference, there's a debate on that. But they're mastered really well. Dead silent vinyl. So XTC, kudos to, I think Andy is behind that whole thing. I am not a fan of the Beatles reissues, other than maybe the extras that come in these assorted collections that they've been releasing. The -2-1 UK original is the holy gospel. It can't be beat as far as I'm concerned. I was disappointed in this kind of reimagining and remix of that album. So in that case, I'm good with an original, and I realize those are, especially the UKs, they're hard to find clean. I've got 2 other examples. The Zappa Family Trust has done an amazing job, and they continue to do an amazing job. The Pressed at Palace, there's that little symbol there. Great sounding records. I don't have a problem finding original Zappa records pretty clean as well. And it's either or. I mean, they're very, very similar as far as sound quality is concerned. And then last but not least, I could go on, but I'll stop at Neil Young. These original, he's got his little SPARS code telling you the exact source. A lot of these earlier records are all analog AAA. Chris Bellman, amazing. Now, funnily enough, I found for $32, I found a Sterling Lee Holko original Harvest for $32 yesterday, clean. And man, that sounds amazing as well. But if you can't find those, thank God for these issues. They're great.
Yeah, I did a review on the Bellman versus was it the Nautilus versus the original Lee Holko ones, and I thought the original sounded really amazing as well. So I mean, if you can pick one up for 10 to 20, $30, that's all you need.
Yep.
You know,
Matt?
I wanted to talk about this because this is one of my all-time favorite live albums, and this is my copy from my record store days, 1976. One of the greatest live albums on Warner Brothers. Still beautiful copy, just stunning. That's the only copy I had for decades. When my late friend Coleman Burke died, and I curated his collection, he had two MOFIs. He had the 1979, the very first MOFI, this is like a year after the original came out. And he had the later one. The later one, I forgot when that was from, the 90s. I don't remember, 89, whatever it was, it wasn't very good. This one is excellent. And I don't usually AB them. But then, of course, last year, this came out, and this is a Bernie Grunman cut. And I don't do a lot of shootouts on my channel, but I did because I love this record so much. I don't even know why I actually bought this, because the other ones are perfectly fine. But I did. And I guess Rhino put this out. It doesn't say Rhino, but it's Warner Brothers, so it's the reissue label. This sounds excellent. I did a shootout. In my shootout, for my taste on my system, I preferred this 79 MOFI, but not by a great margin.
Yeah.
All three of them were really, really good. And I remember after I did that, someone I know who is another vinyl community who has a system probably 10 to 20 times more expensive than mine said, Mazzy, you're wrong. And the thing is, what it comes down to is all our systems. Last week, remember, or was it the week before, I talked about Hoffman made that comment on the cars, and he was kind of like iffy. He went back and played it on his system with his cart and his rig, and he loved it so much better. So what's going to sound great, the first choice on Tim on these, or you, and you're at the hi-fi studio with the hoity-toity fancy
the hoity-toity stuff. There it is.
It might be different. It's going to be different. Your room, it's
the acoustics as well, and the room setup and everything, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in this case, it's a great sounding recording. It's really hard to screw it up, I would imagine.
So the MOFI ones has to be cut by Stan Ricker, just so everyone knows.
Okay.
And
well, in this case, I liked it better. Now that's in my system, but it wasn't it wasn't a cloud. It wasn't.
And I like the older. We should call it the MFSL label titles of MOFI had years back in the 70s and 80s. I like those labels. I like some of them. I mean, a lot of people complain about the Smiley EQ and whatnot, and obviously with half-speed mastered, you're going to pick up the bass more, and that sounds good. And I like the labels too. That
look at these. Look at this. Is like 140. This is like 100. Who needs a friggin' 180? I've been a proponent for years for Dynaflex. Everyone jokes like, what is it, 90, 110, whatever. But it was the closest to Virgin. It was really good vinyl during the oil crisis. So people like to mock and kid the Dynaflex stuff, but it was better vinyl. And if the mastering was good, the record sounded great. Bowie, Lou Reed, like country record.
It'd be really cool to get the vinyl community together somewhere in a big room like this and do an A/B. Everyone doesn't know, basically a blind A/B, like a Coke versus Pepsi challenge,
right? And
really see what people like the most. I think that'd be amazing. That would really would really solve a lot of issues and solve a lot of the debate that we hear and read all the time in these forums and different channels.
Another one I would say, this is my original. I love this record, of course. This is Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yeah.
This is, I'm always a big fan of the original, this kind of, dirty brownish, greenish, whatever that color label. I love that A&M. This label stuff, usually the records sound really good. This is a fantastic sounding record. This could be, this is the Intervention, and it has the advantage over the original. Now, by a great margin, no. If I hadn't heard this, I'd be totally satisfied. And the thing is, none of us need another copy of a record we have. And I've had that record for 50 plus years, since 69, I guess I bought it, 70 maybe. And, it's in good shape. But to find one like Tim said, to find one like that in good shape of that period, it's not that easy. So for whatever this was, $40, I think, Intervention, they do a great, beautiful job. That's why
we don't talk as much about Intervention as we should at times. I think that's a very underrated label.
And they do a lot of A&M stuff. They did the not Tracy Chapman, Joan Arbitrating.
Tracy Chapman self-titled. No, that would be one that'd be nice to be repressed on an audiophile label.
That'd be absolutely. They just did. Now it's funny. I have big high praise for that very first Peter Frampton album, When to Change. I have an original, and it sounds really good. I love that record. And Intervention just put in the box of the 3 or 4, whatever those first Frampton, except for one. I'm not getting it because I don't really, the other ones I don't need it. But that was a surprise they did that.
That's cool. I didn't see that. Yeah, that's neat.
I think it just came out in the last month or so. And the 3 albums, I don't know if there's people screaming for Peter Frampton. I don't know. But that first album, When's It Changed, is an incredible sounding record. Really, the Fig Trig Bay, that opening track, I think it is, sounds amazing. So unfortunately, they're not selling those individually. So, but Intervention, they're right here at Gig Harbor, south of us.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about, the represses versus the original as well. I mean, it's a price point. So, I mean, Norman, getting back to your, talking about the $150 UHQR or box records, you're getting one. I mean, I can go out and find the originals, if I'm lucky I can get 3 or 4 originals copies of something for just one, box UHQR or one step. So I think that's what it's looking right now in, I think, the vinyl community, is people are looking at their wallets going, okay, I've got $150. Do I want one record, or can I get 3 or 4 ones that I really want that are original and are going to sound pretty damn good? Right.
Or buy something new instead of buying the same album you already have the music for. I mean, that's,
Yeah. I mean, the Cars is a great example of the Rhino reissues. I mean, I like the Cars. I have the original and I have the Rhino reissue, and I'm happy to buy both because it's a price point thing for me. And I know we've talked about this. That is going to be the key for us. And for me personally, $39.95 plus the shipping. I should add that in there. So let's say a $50 record, or you divide it by 2 if you're buying 2 records. But anyways, for the shipping. But I mean, that is a good deal. If they can keep it at $40, if whatever they're going to release in the next couple of months, I mean, that's, I think, really good in terms of price point and the quality that we're getting. If they can basically up the packaging, that's going to be a home run.
Tim mentioned that double 45 Fleetwood Mac Rumors that Steve Hoffman did.
Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman.
Yeah, a dozen years ago or so, whenever it was, maybe more. Incredible. For a while, that was going up for a high price.
It's $150 each.
But now
pick it up.
Now it's been every couple of years they repress it, so it's around. Some may argue though the stuff they don't like 45 RPM. I totally get that. But the thing that sold me, that was probably one of the first of the double 45s that I went for. And the reason I did is because, again, I got a promo in 1977 of the 12-inch single of Go Your Own Way before it came out. It's a 12-inch maxi single, with Silver Springs, 45 RPM. That record, I think it's 45 or is it 30, but it's a 12-inch one track. It's one of the best sounding records in my entire collection. I think it goes for $70 now just for the 12-inch. But if you can find a copy of that, so when I saw that they were doing the double 45 of that I wanted to go for, because for 25 years I couldn't listen to Rumors because it was so overplayed. But I hit a sweet spot when that came out, and it's if you don't have it, and if you like that record, there's nothing.
I think Kevin and Hoffman cut that like in 2010, but for licensing issues, they didn't get actually released till 5 years later or something. The story goes, if I'm not mistaken.
For whatever reason, they did the self-titled, the White Album as well. But I don't see that being repressed, or I haven't, and it's very expensive right now in Discogs. More rare. I was in a shop in Denver maybe over a year ago, and I just stumbled upon one of the Rumors double 45s and kind of $49. Pick it up.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
I do want to show one more before I let go of this. Now, of course, Rhino put this mono one out. Not Rhino, excuse me.
MOFI.
Right. This is one of my all-time favorite records, 1967. But I prefer the stereo. For 67, I mean, I thought it was great stereo. I got this. I was so disappointed with it.
You're taking that one back, aren't you?
I probably will send it back when
Yeah.
when they do the send back, because it's not that MOFI did a horrible job, but I just think the mono version is not very good from my point of view. I have an original mono too, but if they had gone with a stereo, this is so good. So my original stereo sounds better. Now I know some will say it's not fair to compare stereo to a mono, but I'm sure they couldn't get the stereo licensing. But I think Rhino also did a mono some years ago during their like Summer of Love or one of those things. And I just don't like it, but what a great record this is.
Let's see I want to see can I see the vinyl on the original? And so I'm talking original today.
With a girl like you, of course.
I love it.
Grooving.
Oh yeah, beauty.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
I get yelled at. What you just did, you got a fingerprint on there now, and I get yelled at.
Oh man, you know what it is? Okay, I'm going to do this. When I have a stack of records and I'm doing it, I do this a lot. Oh shit. Okay, I do, and you hear it plop on the floor flat.
Yeah.
People's heads explode. Mazzy, you hear it. Records are durable. I have 50, 60-year-old records that are in better shape than this stuff I see in used record stores, and I keep my records in but records are forgiving. You can, you're right. Yeah. Okay. I need to go through the humming guru with this now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're washing or you're cleaning your records now, Norman. That's
I'm
awesome.
only cleaning records new records only if they need it, and use records that are coming through this stuff. I'm not going through all my records. No. If I pull a record out to play it and I see it, I'll do it then. I'm not going to go through.
I have the humming guru as well. I just use distilled water. That's all I use in the actual machine. I don't know other people. Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm doing now too.
I don't do everyone, but I'm kind of selective, and if it looks.
I don't have time for it. I mean, I'm just going to pick. If I have an old original, I'll give you an example. I mean, we're talking about crate digging. I picked this one up. This is an original Coltrane. It's in Stereo Giant steps. So I got this for $40 Canadian. So what would that be, like $32 US, I would believe. So I figure that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, nice.
How much Canadian?
40 Canadian.
That's like $3 US.
$32 US.
No, $3 US.
Oh, yeah, and it's still in its original I just got it the other day.
It didn't come in a poly sleeve.
Here's a fingerprint. Here's the fingerprints, everyone's. But it's just on the it's very nice.
Remember, we were growing up in my generation, back in my day, except for Columbia Records in the late 60s and then the late 70s into the 80s, Warner Brothers, there weren't poly sleeves. It wasn't a thing. Maybe classical music. And
I know, this is the old, this is it, eh? This is the old original.
And all paper is not equal. So I will say that there's some paper.
Did the poly sleeves originate in Japan? Maybe I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Well, remember, you know how you see those Columbia things that mostly the two eyes.
Yeah,
you get one, and it's round, the shape of it. They used to have a Ziploc, like a zip. You unzip it, so the record would be sealed in this.
So, do you think it was about early or maybe it was like mid to late 70s they started using like the rice paper? I know JVC, right? The Japan, they probably would have done that. That's when, because MOFI or Mobile Fidelity came out with the rice paper in the late 1970s with their releases.
Yeah, and I think it stopped with the Columbia because little kids were putting them over their heads. Don't try this at home, kid. That kind of stuff. And it's scary.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was getting back to this. I mean, Vancouver record stores, these don't come around very often. So I had to grab this one for the price. I mean, I haven't really looked it up on Discogs, but I'm sure I got an all right deal on it. And it looks like the vinyl's still pretty, pretty nice. I mean, it looks beautiful. I haven't played it yet, but I mean, a little bit more.
I think a lot of people didn't play those a lot. It's not like a Zeppelin album or even a Beatles album.
No, I mean, the vinyl's still shiny. It literally has no scratches on it.
Yeah, so it's got that moldy mildew shit on the front.
You can smell it has the old record, you can smell that.
You can see it from, you can see
that, right? You can smell it. It's coming your way. So yeah, I'll play this one.
Those brown spots.
Yeah, brown spots. I don't know where it's at, but the vinyl's nice. But this is the thing, right? The reissue. I mean, they've done the reissue. I don't know how much they are, but I bet you this is going to sound pretty damn nice, pretty sweet.
And even if you never compare, that's the thing. Most people aren't going to compare. Right. There's always a person who will say, Well, okay, they'll say something like, okay, this is another example.
I love that album.
The MOFI, okay, first of all, this record wasn't really super recorded, drenched in stereo. I grew up with it, but the MOFI 45 beats the hell out of every other version. And mono, it's as dry as it can be for an album that's not a dry record. Sundays did the mono, which is pretty good. I have multis of this because it's one of my all-time favorite records.
Yeah.
And yes, but I would, I'm not a huge fan of 45, but I love this record so much. It sounds great. Now someone will say, well, yeah, but it would sound even better if it was from the tapes and not the DSD. Well, there's always something, maybe, like it's in science fiction. It might sound better, but, I'm not going to defend MOFI for the lies and stuff, but they had more, since they have those DSD files, they have more time to work on them, theoretically.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned from the tapes, that's an interesting angle for some of the reissues. Most recently, the Kevin Gray Cars, self-titled, the story, or, there's an commentary out there saying, well, even Elliot Easton, the guitarist, said this, that's the closest I've heard this, other than when we recorded it, being closest to the original tapes. And a lot of people will say that. Some people will say that for the Tone Poet stuff as well. So it's interesting where tapes are being revisited and you're getting a little more oomph or another take out of the tapes if the tapes are in good shape and your modern turntables are able to handle the, let's say, extra fidelity there,
It's more different than better, I think.
It's different. I'm not saying it's better, but it's different. Yeah.
If you're used to those Blue Notes for 50 years, 60 years, if you're, used to a certain record that you've heard the record, it's going to be different than, and none of us have heard the tapes.
No.
So,
and I can tell you, going back to the Cars, Kevin Gray cut that. The original one, the lower end was filtered due to the skipping and, due to the skipping of the vinyl because of the gear that people had back in the late 70s, early 80s. So what Kevin didn't do this time, there's no filter on the bottom end. So I think what people are hearing is truly the bass that came off the tape more than the original. So that would be the big difference I'm hearing as well for my original versus the Rhino reissue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting for the audiophile market. That's like, what's the kitty stuff, the cat, that's like catnip to an audiophile's ears. Like, wow, I want to hear.
Exactly. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, then, we can get in the whole discussion about you want to buy a record to make your gear sound better or just go for the music first. And I know it's hard to do that. It sounds like you're dumping on audiophiles. I dip my toe into it. I'm probably the least of audiophiles compared to some people, but I like great sound. But at what point are you, if you're never satisfied with something, there's always something more out there in the world. There's something
sold the speakers, so they're taking them out of here right now.
Oh, there you go.
Big sale.
Wow.
If you were at home, we'd start thinking the repossessed man is showing up.
Well, maybe it is. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, they're just so there's a big sale on that one. So so did you guys do any crate digging this week at all?
I have something, and this is pretty cool. So this was last week. I walked into an antique mall that I will go into occasionally. There's a couple little record dealers in there. And after we had Tom Port on several weeks ago, he was talking about the Harry T. Moss 70s reissues. And so I went out on Discogs and picked one up for like $30, and it sounded great. And I'm talking about Rubber Soul. Anyway, this is a near mint 1968 stereo. I found it in this antique mall for $15. And I pulled out my phone and it's like, wait a minute, this is crazy. And I kind of figured out what year it was, which took several minutes. But the median on these, if we're gonna go by Discogs, is like $65 or $70. So it's still possible to walk into these places and get a steal.
What year was that part? What year is that Parlophone? That's a 68. I was going to mention too, and Norman, you might know
stereo.
The blue box from 1985, the Parlophone cut for the Beatles, I think that one holds up in terms. I have a lot of the 1984 blue box. I have the whole blue box from 1984, and I love the sound of that. I'll never listen to my MOFI if I have the choice between the Parlophone.
The thing at the blue box, the BC13 box, the first 1,000 were numbered that came to the US, and they came out from, I think, was it 78, 79 to about 83 or so, give or take.
Yeah.
They were never pressed as a box. They were basically, they made these boxes and they pulled off the shelf all the records. So whatever they had in stock were in the box. So you're not necessarily getting records that were pressed the same time for the box, like box sets today. You're getting whatever. So you could have a year-old copy, a 6-month-old copy, something that came off 2 weeks ago. It's all in the dead wax. So they're all, they could be all different. No two will be the same.
Interesting.
And that leads me to another thing. I really think we're going to get a big Beatles announcement this year. And it makes sense to me that if you look at what they've remixed so far, it's probably just going to be the 6 albums, Please Please Me, all the way through to Rubber Soul. That's what's going to happen. It has to. And box it up and whatever, however they're going to package it. But I don't think it's going to be like just one individual album. I think it's going to be like this remix box set, like in something like that. I don't know. That's what I think is going to happen. Mark today, June 9th, 2023.
I'm thinking they're just going to.
Or they can repress the mono box.
They're going
to. I don't think they're repressing the mono box. I don't think that's happening. I think it's
the mono without the book.
I think it's re-imaging or the reimage of Giles Martin of the first 6 albums starting from Please Please Me. That's probably what's going to happen.
I wish hey, Giles Martin's a one talented guy, but I wish they would do it out of the family if they're going to.
Well, they're doing it, but they're doing it with Peter Jackson software, right? Because I mean, a lot of that's 4-track, so they're basically able to take every instrument out, and we know. I mean, you can buy the Let It Be remix for $68.
Didn't we talk? I can't remember where I talk about this stuff. The problem with the Beatles remix is they don't say remix. They should change something on the cover or something. They need to change it because eventually you're going to get mixed up. You're not going to know if this is a remix or that's.
I think I'm really done buying Beatles stuff at this point. I've got a lot. I don't know. I think it was, I don't know who I was talking to. I'll just stick with my 2014 mono box.
But haven't you been wearing a Beatles shirt for the last 3 weeks in a row here? I think.
I got different shirts.
We should start with your wardrobe first, Steve Westman.
Well, if you walk into somewhere and find a 68 original Beatles title in near mint condition for $15, don't tell me you're not taking.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm going to, but I'm just saying some of this remix stuff, I'm not excited about it. I'm not going to run out and pre-order it and going, oh my God, I got to get this. And then I'm going to run and do a video on it because who cares at this point? I think the Parlophone cut sounds good. I think the mono box is amazing. I don't care about the MOFI box or the MOFI cuts as well. I think those aren't that great. So yeah.
My digging has been new releases in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, let's see.
Paul Simon record. Now, for most people, they're probably not going to like this. It's Psalms. It's called 7 Psalms. It's sort of spiritual in a way. Long piece, not really song based as well, but his voice sounds great. His guitar sound based. I had 2 copies I got with this kind of greenish, almost like Dayglow vinyl from Amazon special edition. I didn't buy it because of that, but I just thought it'd be easy. And I would, both were noisy as hell on track 2. I cleaned them up, had to return them. Went to my local, got a black one. It's fine. I love this record. Not for everybody, but there's issues with that, and I had to watch it. But I'm going to do this because I love this. This is and this is a friend. This Michael Muller has this. This is Balmoret, and this is their second album on Deutsche Grammophon. They used to be Austin-based. He's in LA, and his partner, his good piano player. It's very minimal, kind of neoclassical, instrumental, some voice but not vocals on Deutsche Grammophon. And this is called Pendant World. It's coming out next Friday. Michael sent me an advance copy, and it's really beautiful. But it's very much like some Windham Hill and ECM. It's low key. It's not in your face. Piano, guitar. There's some flute, some Winwoods. You know what I'm talking about? Winwoods, right? Woodwinds. I'm dyslexic today. Woodwinds and some cello and violin, and it's just a really lovely, lovely record. So I'm giving a shout out. But nice. I love Balmoret.
Nice.
I did at my local record store. I mean, I'm certain Mazzy knows about the Church, Australian band. This is their self-titled. This is an original from 1980. I want to say 82 is original Canadian pressing. This is completely original. Again, look at this in the paper, 1982.
You're going to go to hell with those sleeves.
But look at this. It's purple capital label.
Is it an American press, you said?
No, this is Canadian. Canadian had the purple label. So a lot of my old Capitol Beatles is all on the purple label.
It's a Wally Trowgut.
Right, yeah, it's a Wally.
Yeah. See if it's a Wally in the Dead Wax.
Yeah, I got to look here.
Because he was, a lot of that purple stuff, he was doing some of that.
What would it look like? There's some sort of initials.
It would say Wally, like W-A-L-Y.
Don't see that here.
Okay.
As a Canadian version, so I don't know. But yeah, this is a Canadian pressing, pressed at a plant in Ontario or Mississauga back in the 1982. So this is in decent condition. This was $15 Canadian.
Wow. They did an in-store here about 6 weeks ago at Easy Street Records.
Yeah. And I picked this up for $5 because I have the CD, but I've never owned the actual record before.
Okay. The way it is. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
I like the way it is. And again, this was in a paper sleeve with the lyrics. He
was a Grateful Dead keyboard player for a while.
Yeah, that was cool when he jumped in with the
RCA.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's original as well. And I think the cover is different on some of the albums. This is a different cover. I think the band is on the front. I think this picture might be on the front instead. I'd have to look at it, but I don't remember it ever. And this is an original. This is
that mid-80s, like 86?
This is 1986. This is another one manufactured in Canada, Scarborough, Ontario, registered 1986. So this is original from 86 RCA label. So
yeah, I don't think he recorded with the band, but he sure did tour with them for a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember Don Henley, the End of the Innocence album that was made in 1989, I want to say, End of the Innocence. That was the piano on that song was Bruce Hornsby.
That's a good sounding original, and those are actually not that easy to find.
Oh, really?
Really? Record, yeah, that's a good sounding one.
So there's another one, The End of the Innocence, and I mean that's one I had on cassette. I got my driver's license in 1989, and one of my first cassettes in my car was End of the Innocence by Don Henley, along with Led Zeppelin, Abbey Road, you name it. But yeah, I'll never forget that. That was a great album, basically from every single track. I think
did you have a Deadhead sticker on a Cadillac?
I did not have a Deadhead sticker on a Cadillac, but I love that line, and that wasn't from that album.
I'll show one more. Show one more.
Oh, that was the album before that was what was that one with the Beast or something? Yeah.
Yeah. Hiding the Beast. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So last weekend I'm in a shop in Boulder. It's a really nice record store, and I'm at the point now where I'm walking in and I'm looking at the kind of stuff on the wall, see what they have up there. And I bought one record and this was it. I never see this anywhere. So The Idiot, Iggy Pop, 1977. It's original black RCA.
So there you go with these originals. I mean, that's what we're pulling these days, some originals. And I bet you these are going to sound really good. I mean, this is the thing. Do we always need the reissue, right? I think we need to be selective.
Early thought. And
there's another thing, Jeff Beck. I have the MOFI and I like the MOFI version, but I can't compare it to the original.
The MOFI is better, is the version.
I like it.
Of course, it is double 45.
Yeah.
It's a great version.
Well, now, here's the reissue thing with MOFI. They've done an incredible job on the Miles titles and on the Dylan titles. And if you don't have the time and try to find the Two Eyes and whatever the original Miles, what they came out on, then and especially if they're repressed, you can get them for street price for $59. By all means.
Well, I mean, MOFI is coming out with Whitney pretty soon. You can pre-order that. I mean, I mentioned Bill Withers, Still Bill's out right now.
I did get one of the Run DMCs. I know
Run DMCs. Like Mazzy's pre-ordered the entire Joni Mitchell catalog, I'm sure, and Van Halen as well. I'll probably get the 1984 One Step Van Halen. I think I might. I don't know. I have the original.
That stuff's not for me.
Yeah, I have the original, so I mean, I don't know.
I haven't heard anything from Chad on what we know about the next UHQR Steely Dan. He's got that all kind of scheduled out, but Any new UHQRs on the horizon?
Well, I mean, today the Countdown to Exidy Steely Dan non-UHQR that was cut by is it Universal that cuts those? It was a digital file that Bernie mastered. That was released today, so you can pick that up on Amazon or Chad's site for like $39.
I think the problem, all these like big sets and series, not just with Chad, with MOFI, were planned before or during the pandemic, and with this wishing thing, it's
marketplace is different.
And I have spoken to a lot of people in the industry during the pandemic, and they were trying to figure out what to sort of plan for, and they weren't sure, how long this whole vinyl, popularity would last. And I think we're seeing demand slow. I really do. I think supply is definitely caught up.
I don't really participate on the MoFi sales and the online sales things and stuff, but so I don't want to judge anyone, but I have noticed that there's an awful lot of like MoFi and things being sold sealed. People sat on these things.
Well, they bought two. They bought two. They bought a copy.
Yeah, they bought two to pay for one or two or three or four, whatever. And now I'm sympathetic to a point, but I'm not sympathetic. I mean, that's like gambling. You're hoping that the stock market stays with records away. So there. And that's when other people wanted them, and you bought copies that other people couldn't get in those days when they were selling out, and now you're stuck. And maybe you're going
to be stuck. I mean, MoFi's One Step Paul Simon's Still Crazy after all these years was $125 brand new.
Yeah,
$60 you can pick it up for anywhere now.
Yeah. Now it's too bad that MoFi doesn't have the ability to do Abraxas again. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Get that license, because everyone still thinks
that would piss 2,500. That would piss 2,500 people off, though.
But it shouldn't. I mean, I've talked about this. I work in the photo industry, and I know about fine art. You can do an edition of, let's say, edition of 100, 11 by 14, whatever prints. Mm-hmm. Then you can do a 2025 edition of 11 by 14s, 2020. And then you can do a 16 by 20 edition, or like the Rolling Stones, there was a color edition after. Editions limited. And if you're buying it because it's limited, to me, that's a BS way of buying music. That's a personal thing. And I sound like I'm pissing on people for doing that, but that's on you. If you're not buying it only for the, beyond for the music, that's on you.
Everything that I own, I buy for the music, and I never really have no thought about when I'm picking it up. Oh, I'm going to resell this on the MoFi buy and sell site on Facebook or whatever. I don't think about that at all. I mean, there was a few times I bought, copies of some of the stuff during the height of the pandemic. But other than that, I'm not a reseller.
And again, I know I'm going to pick on someone. I'm not mentioning names because I don't know names. Someone's offering that last ERC for asking $1,800 for it. What, it came out a month ago? I mean, what, you don't like it, or did you just buy it to flip? Now, I get it. I mean, that's a free market. But I mean, if you enjoy the music and you want that ERC experience,
Yeah, but I mean, everyone. Yeah, it's you're talking The Doors. Is that what you're talking about?
The
one that I did the video.
Was there like a non-rock and roll title recently?
Yeah, there's I can't remember. I mean, classical, but I mean, The Doors, the one that my viewer lent to me to listen to. I mean, from the Lido tapes, it was okay. I mean, I don't know if I would spend $500 US. That's like a lot Canadian. So you just get the American. You get it's a lot. No matter what, you can get the Vinyl Me Please cut that Bernie did with Bruce Botnick for $50. It's fine. I mean, that wasn't great. It wasn't amazingly recorded to begin with, if you think about it. So really, I mean, how much more can you get off these tapes? I think it's more it's a gimmick.
Double.
Well, that's the stereo version, which is my go-to for stereo. I mean, the mono one, I think I would just stick with Bernie Grundman's for $50 and be done with it.
Doors are better in stereo, I think, anyway.
I think so too. Yeah, I definitely agree. Especially on a couple of the tracks. Well, the end especially, I feel it's way better in stereo than it is in mono. Just my opinion.
Back to the limited thing, sometimes there's like a happy accident. REM will occasionally they repressed two titles from the 90s. One was Around the Sun.
Saw that.
They did a different color variant, and there was only 1,000. I jumped on it and got one.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
But they did that last time with, what was the album? Kevin Gray did it.
Automatic Monster.
No.
It's automatic for the people.
Not automatic. The one that came after that, the last one with Bill Berry on it. I'm drawing a blank.
With what's the frequent Sweet Kenneth?
No, that's Monster. The one. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, they did a limited thing on it.
Someone will make a comment on the video, so we'll know. Yeah.
And it was like $40, and it's now, you go on Discogs and, hey, what's my top 10 most expensive? It's like $200.
Wow.
That's driving me crazy. I have to get that title, but
we'll find it, and then Norman and I will chat a little bit, because of getting back to the original versus audiophile. I mean, did they wear out the stamper back in the 70s? You were in the industry. I mean, they probably were obviously pressing a lot. So maybe that's another issue, because going back, because my Joe Cocker, we talked about this a few weeks back, the Little Help from My Friends, my original is terrible. Oh yeah. I love it. I have that album.
Yeah.
My Joe Cocker original sucked. We talked about this, and I put the album up and we were laughing about it. And then I got the Speaker's Corner the following week, and it was night and day. So Norman, do you think like it has something to do with maybe worn out metal at some point for some of these originals? So we have to be
I'm the
careful?
wrong person to answer this, because I don't know all about press, and I'm not going to profess to. I'm not an expert on that stuff. All I know is I don't know anybody that I worked with in retail or record labels in San Francisco, and people I knew in LA, because I'd go down to LA also for work, that talked about dead wax stampers, where I mean, we didn't look at that shit. I
just think they pressed as many as they could based on demand. So I mean, later ones,
we didn't compare copies. So, we didn't say, oh, this is a Jacksonville.
So that's why I think some of the originals, depending on the metal, right, are different. And I think they could sound different. That getting back, I don't know if you heard me, Tim. Remember my Joe Cocker experience, Little Help from My Friends. My original was muddy and flat, and just the vocals were late. It was just terrible pressing. It was probably a late pressing or whatever. And I got the Speaker's Corner, and it was like, wow, this is definitely a difference. I mean, think about it though.
Or an overrun, a stamper.
I think it's an overrun stamper, because think about this, right? You get one master, you cut it to you cut that into a lacquer, and then there's 10 mothers, and you can basically make 10 stampers, I believe, from those mothers. So if you do the math, that's 100,000. 100,000 is the most probably you could get out of that one lacquer.
You need to get the Steve Hoffmans and people that know about this stuff on to talk about this stuff. I certainly don't know. It was this guy I worked with in a record store, Coleman Burke. He used to be Cha-Cha on the Hoffman forums, that got me sucked into the Hoffman forums about 13 or 14 years ago. And then he started learning more about dead wax and the best versions of stuff.
Steve Hoffman is a fan of our roundtable.
Those guys know this stuff. I don't know it.
But I do think it's about 100,000 is probably the max you can get per from the mothers, and so then after they have to go and recut it. So I think they probably back in the day, depending on demand, probably really use that metal up. So some of those later cuts from that metal won't sound as good. So that there is, I know that whole hot stamper debate, it's debatable, but there's probably some credence to that.
You could get, who you get on is George Borden. He's incredible. He's a mastering engineer by right. And
George would be good on here sometime.
George would be good. George would, speak authoritatively about it. But yeah,
I'd be curious. Yeah, Hoffman. Steve Hoffman and I, we've texted back and forth. He's well aware of the channel.
Cool.
Yeah, and I've invited him on, but
I only got kicked off the Hoffman forums 3 times in 12 years. Or I got timed
I invited him on the round table, but he's politely declined. But he didn't say no, just not right now. I think it'd be really fun to pick his brain if we can get him on there. I definitely want
Hoffman and Bob Ludwig on in 1 week. That'd be great.
Bob Ludwig, I mean, he's returned my emails a bunch of times, and the times he's returned it, he still has decided he's just not ready to do it yet. So I'm not going to harass the man, but he knows we're out there, and I'm hoping to get him on. I would like to do that.
Why don't you, in the comments, put your request of who Steve Westman should have as guests? With or without us, we don't have to be here all the time.
So you heard that from Mazzy. So please, in the comments, ask me which guests you want on the roundtable, and I think that will be lots of fun. I've reached out to a lot of people. Everyone gets back to me politely. Some just don't want to do it. So I mean, it's not like they're ignoring me, which is really cool. That was the one thing I was worried about when I first started out. They would just ignore me. Some did, but then as we sort of got traction with this, our name gets out there and the roundtable gets out
I
there,
went
people
for
hear
the
about it.
about 3 months ago. I went for the Big Fish, and I got turned down because there's a book coming out actually next week.
Paul McCartney, I think you'd mentioned that, didn't you?
Yeah, photographs of Paul McCartney from '64 when they were, first came. And I went to his publicist and says, "Look, I'm a photo agent. I want to talk to him not about his records, not about music, but about like the top 5."
As if you wouldn't talk about records though if you had them on.
But no, but I want to talk about like, what was it like working with Richard Avedon? What was it like working with Robert Whitaker, who did the Butcher cover? What was her and the most famous?
That's a cool angle, yeah.
It would have been a great angle.
So why would
book on photographs coming out?
That would be fantastic. That'd be amazing.
But instead, his publicist said he's not really doing any press. Now, I just got a thing last week. He's doing a thing at the National Portrait Gallery. You know who he's having a conversation with? Stanley Tucci. And some people think we look alike. So come on. Stanley Tucci and not Mazzy?
Oh my God. An interesting choice. Huh.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
What does he know about that?
I've reached out. I mean, being Canadian and being from Winnipeg, born and raised, I reached out to 2 Winnipeggers, or former Winnipeggers. One being Neil Young and the other being Burton Cummings from The Who, and both turned me down politely.
Guess who?
Yeah, the Guess Who, sorry. It was funny though, Neil Young's manager got back to me and we were sort of going back and forth at the time. And at the time it was during the Grammys, and he said he couldn't do it. And then not too long ago, Neil was on, I think, Victorian on the island and did a free show. So I'll get back to them. And then Burton Cummings politely declined as well. These guys, I guess, don't want to come on. I don't know. But the Guess Who would be fun. I mean, Burton Cummings, I've listened to a million times. Or
something, and be topical.
Ted Lasso. I mean, yeah, he's a good soccer coach. That Ted Lasso, isn't he? He's done really well. So I think, the stamper thing's interesting. I think as back in the 70s, as they had a lot of demand, they probably pressed more using those same mothers that obviously depleted the sound. I definitely feel that with some of my originals. My Canadians, I don't know what they use in terms of their the tapes, but they're pretty good quality. I'm pretty happy with what I have so far. And you remember a while back I was mentioning that my supposed Canadian MOFI cuts from A&M, they had an audiophile edition just for the Canadian market, and it basically said audiophile, and it's like Supertramp, Time of the Century. They had I think it was Styx. They have The Police, etc. Now, those are supposedly from the master tapes, but they have two different albums per title back in the 80s. If you look on Discogs, one's a gatefold and one's just the original album cover and has the gold on top. So I have both Crime of the Centuries, the audiophile A&M, and their gatefold audiophile. Now it has two different descriptions of the master tape. So they say they use the master tape on the non-gatefold, which is the gold one, and on the gatefold it says it comes from a copy of the master. I found that very interesting. So I did not know that before. So, and these came out, the Crime of the Century, it was an A&M, right? MOFI came out with their half speed exactly the same time as the A&M audiophile version, Crime of the Century. And they're both pressed at JVC with the super vinyl back in the 70s. So
making of a video for you, Steve.
What's that? People are going to be
making of a shootout.
Steve, they're going to be like, Canadian audiophile. They had that. Yeah, I just call it. And I've done shootouts on these before. So it's the Canadian. I call it my Canadian MOFI. And there's one. It's Supertramp's. Oh God, it's even in the quietest moments is absolutely a MOFI because Stan Ricker actually cut it to half speed on JVC. But it's a A&M audiophile cut, not a MOFI cut. So even in the quietest moments, Stan Ricker MOFI Canadian, and sounds amazing.
Well, I can't wait to do a collaboration with you in person in Vancouver in September.
You want to do it in one of the hoity-toity rooms or what?
The hoity-toity room works for me. I see you got those Bauer Wilkins behind you. The 800 series, I believe.
There's a bunch of different ones here. Hang on.
Yeah. Okay.
These are the ones you want right there.
Yeah, we'll go with those.
We'll try those ones out.
We'll throw a pair in the back of my GTI.
They won't know around here. There's no cameras everywhere.
No,
don't worry about it.
I'll give them a few records and trade.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the other big speaker's being transported as we speak in front of me, so that's good.
Do you have anything to declare, Mr. Maslov, when you cross this border?
Well, let's wrap it there, gents. I think this has been a very productive hour. Any plans for the weekend?
I might do a little record shopping. I don't know. I have to kind of keep my wife happy, and we'll do some pursuits. Who knows? I don't know.
I have a Disney record auction. Next week I have two shows. I saw we were talking before. Tim just went to see The Cure.
Yeah.
That's pretty hot. I'm going to see Marty Stewart, The Superlatives next week, and the Eagles next week.
Nice.
I haven't seen shows in over a month, and I got two nights in a row.
Well, that's nice. We'll have a wonderful weekend, and I'll remind viewers, put in the comments, please comment on everything we've talked about today. Plus, if whatever guests you want to see, I'll reach out to them and we'll get them on hopefully. So guys, have a good weekend, and we'll see you again very soon.